Warfel, W-A-R-F-E-L.
Okay, but we're gonna talk about your family,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Which was Bucks.
Mhm.
And we're gonna concentrate on that a little bit. What I'm gonna do is ask you to state your name and tell the year. You don't have to tell me the date of your birth, but tell me the year you were born so we can figure out how old you are.
Can't turn around.
I'm 80, so that's easy.
Okay. And because the video is being shot by people who are 80 and older. Because what we're trying to do is get the stories about Palmyra onto tape from the people that lived most of the past 80 to 100 years. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do. So we were just talking to the Ralphs, and John was telling us about the, what was it, the Drum and Bugle Corps, which I had never heard about before. And I had just gotten a question this week from another lady who was in it and wanted to know why we didn't have any pictures, you know, and so there are things like that that happen that we don't, today, we don't know. And like with your stores, we'll talk about that. Because,
Oh, I told you.
yeah, so I'll ask you, you know, how long you've lived in Palmyra, and you might even tell us where approximately, like
Yeah.
the West End or whatever.
I'm a Route 1.
Route 1, Palmyra, is that what your address?
Yeah, Forge Road it was. It's
Right.
been changed now to Route 2 or something, but when I lived out there.
Okay, so that's what, and we'll just go from there. And as you might hear the other person talk about something, it might spread, or start something in your mind, or I'll think of something on the last questions. It'll be very informal. We'll do it for about 20, 25 minutes, okay? All right, so Steve, we're ready to go, all right? And you talk with me, right? They aren't supposed to look at the camera,
No.
okay? Start with me. And well, let's start with Helen. Helen, tell us who you are and when you were born and your early life in Palmyra.
My name is Helen Warfel. I was born September the 15th, 1930. My story about Palmyra is more of a teenage story. I didn't live in Palmyra. I didn't go to school in Palmyra as a Hershey girl. And when I was 13 years old, 13 and 14, I have a sister, Luella, everybody calls her Babe. We didn't have TV or anything then. My brothers were all in the service. And my dad was such a good guy. He said, girls, you may have the car. Don't let the cops see this. Because he let me use the car to come to Seltzer's Theater 3 times a week.
Goodness.
And they had, they'd give dishes away.
My father took the tickets there and he gave the dishes
Okay. Was it Wednesdays and Fridays? You'd get,
My daughter has a set of dishes.
I have a whole set that we put together going to the Seltzer's Theater.
Yeah.
And another thing, I am the first licensed woman bus driver in Pennsylvania.
And tell us why that would be. Why would you choose to drive a bus?
My dad owns a bus business.
Okay, so you
My
were.
brothers were in the service, and we owned a snow plow. We had the Department of State hired us to plow snow, and I drove the rig, the dump truck, and my dad operated the shovel and stuff like that.
And so anyone who grew up in Palmyra knows of Buck's buses.
We were always in the
That's
parades.
That's right.
We always had, you know how buses or people advertise, sort of.
Mhm.
So we bought a new pug-nosed monobuilt, that was the bus's name. And I was fortunate enough, really, to drive it, but it was hard because the clutch was so new. Towards the end of the parade, I was just, oh, please, let's get to the end of this road. And at the age of 7, my dad was a ham, sort of. He sang in the church, and he tried to push our talents on anybody that would come to our house. I was a tap dancer, and they got a float together. I was 7 years old, and I don't know if it was one of the Thanksgiving parades or what. At that time, I was too young to know if they had a holiday parade, but they always did then later, and we always were in it. But at this particular time, I was 7, and they had a guitarist, an accordionist, a banjo player, and maybe a bass on the back of this float, this truck. And they put like a dead-end kid cap on me, and I danced the whole way through that parade.
Oh, my goodness.
And I won first prize.
Fantastic. Well, now, were you all self-taught with your tap dancing?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
you just like tap
And
dancing.
the prize was, they came running, you know, to our float and said, honey, you won first prize, you're from the Hollywood shop. Hollywood, boy, at 7 years old. I thought,
You were in Hollywood.
I'm coming there. And it was 2 dresses I got from Shirley Temple. Those were the prizes. But after that, my husband and I liked horses. We had Jenny Lynn's and, what else, Sulky's. We had a horse off of the Chicago track, was a pacer, and was not shy of traffic or anything. He was trustworthy to go in the parades. And every holiday parade, we would get our horse and,
So parades were your whole life?
Yeah.
Parades have been very significant to you?
yeah, in Palmyra, in Palmyra. And that's basically how I'm known in Palmyra. And I drove school bus for the Palmyra kids and the Londonderry kids. I was a substitute for a while.
Mhm.
And
So
then I-
you've seen a lot of school children go through the Palmyra
Oh
school
my
system.
gosh, you cannot believe, Butch likes to kid that I hold every kid to school here in Palmyra. They all say, oh, I rode your bus. Yep, that's mainly,
Well, that became more significant when the Palmyra school system expanded and lawn
Oh.
children were brought in and pregnant
oh, and I
children.
took census for the school.
Okay.
I forget, she was an old maid that was a school teacher, I guess. And she hired me to help with the Mount Gretna area and the Lawn area, South Londonderry, basically. That was a job, to get the census for all the school kids. I
Because those
forgot
houses
about
are sort of
that.
scattered out there.
Yeah, and you were supposed to make personal contact, you know. Once in a while I could get by phone. Maybe I'll think of something when
Okay.
you ask her now. That
Okay.
When we were in school, we had each grade in school made their own Halloween costumes for the parade. Tissue paper, crepe paper.
Great paper.
And you all went in as a
Every grade-
class?
Yes, every grade made their outfits for the parade.
Yep.
Uh-huh. That's why I have a video of 1939, and it looks like there's a Halloween parade in there, and that's why people would be in similar costumes, now that you say that.
Yeah, I never knew that.
Why don't you tell us who you are, and when you came to Palmyra, were you born and raised here the whole time? Okay. Tell us who you are.
Dorothy Sherman Marshall.
Okay.
I was born in,
You don't have to tell us the date.
Yeah.
oh, I don't mind,
No.
July 11th, 1928.
1928, so you've lived here.
I'm older than Helen.
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
Couple of years.
you're one of the few that are older.
Oh, no, we don't.
I lived on Main Street in Miss Turby's house. She was a school teacher in Palmyra.
Yes.
That's the house I was born in.
Okay, and where is, I
It's right
know,
next to the Cinderella shop. That house right next to the Cinderella
okay,
shop.
all right. Okay,
In
Main
Miss
Street.
Turby.
Okay.
And between her and the Cinderella shop was Dougal's dry cleaner.
Dougal's or
Yes.
Dunkels? Was it Dunkels?
Dougal.
Dunkels, okay.
But they were on
They moved back then later on.
College Street or something. Yeah, okay, I remember
And
that.
that was Bone and Bake Shop there in the corner.
I was gonna say, that wasn't the Cinderella
No,
shop,
Baum's
that,
Bakery.
so when you were born, was it Baum's Bakery?
I think
At
so.
that point?
Mhm.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I can remember that now, but I never went in there.
No.
And what did your parents do?
My father worked for Hershey.
Okay,
My mother worked in the factory too at one time.
okay. And he used the trolley? We were just talking about that. He used the trolley to get to work?
He never missed a day of work, even for sickness.
No.
He still went to work.
That's great. That's great. So you owe a lot of your early experiences to Mr. Hershey, I would guess. The fact that your father worked there and that was his lifestyle.
I wouldn't say too much,
Did you used to go to the park?
no.
Oh, you didn't go to the park? Oh,
No.
that's interesting, because a lot of people remember the park and
Oh, I
taking the
don't.
No, I did it
trolley.
later years, but not as a,
Not as a
She's
She's
child.
up there a lot now.
no, I can't pay us anymore.
Hmm.
Chop a little. but not-
You were telling me about some other businesses in Palmyra that, just like Baum's Bakery is no
They're
longer
all
there.
businesses that aren't there now.
Name a couple of those and maybe Helen will remember.
Bell's Meat Market,
Bell's Meat Market, and where was that located?
he should know.
North Railroad, wasn't it? Or-
Right there, but it was called Doc Light's Garage,
Okay,
and he was right beside that Doc Light's Garage,
okay,
between what is now the hobby shop and the Main Street there in the corner. What is, Pastimes or something.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
He
okay,
was in between there. adult meat market. And the Duck Lights Garage was right next to that. Bishop's Restaurant was on the corner.
Bishop's Restaurant was right where later hers,
Mhm.
where hers appliance store was, okay. All right, right in the corner there.
And then across the street was there, like Kreider's music store. It was right along the alley. And then across from that was Kaufman's Jewelry Store.
I know, Kaufman's was there.
Uh-huh. And there was a Farber's Restaurant down on Railroad Street.
Okay.
The Western Auto Store was down there. Farmer's Market.
There was a farmer's market? Oh.
And Carl Brandt's store, grocery store.
Grocery store, we were talking before about all the little grocery stores that were located. Right.
Do you have the Hamilton store on your list? Down near Fosnox, it would be Billy Fosnox.
And what did they sell? Hamilton store.
It was a store he sold anything and everything. I know he had shoes, that's where we would go for shoes.
Was that next to the railroad tracks?
It wasn't real close to the
The
railroad.
Kettering was down there too.
Yeah,
And Dry
it
Goods.
was,
They sold dry
I
goods.
know the J.C.'s started to meet there after he closed up, I think. The J.C.'s
Yeah, I
up
think I know
there.
what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, Hamilton store.
Hmm.
And there was a seltzer tax factory, under seltzer, was it tax factory? And the AMP, right near there was what they called Plows, I think it's called Plows Jewelry Store.
Okay.
And also Lurch's Five and Dime was right next to that. And
Lurch's.
Smith Funeral Home.
Yeah, that was on Main Street.
Now we're on Main Street, right. Lurch's was on Main Street.
Yeah.
Right. Do you remember what was across the street from the funeral home?
Baumgartner's Dairy.
That's right, you were there. That's my family.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Baumgartner's Dairy was
Your
there.
dad is Miss
Was Sam.
Sam. Oh, I had a nice conversation or two in the filling station with him.
Oh, okay, right,
And
right.
Kreider's Shoe Store.
Kreider's Shoe Store and Clothing were there on the corner on Main Street and Chestnut.
Mhm.
Right.
What is there now, that's that gas station, what was there years ago? Next to Kreider's Shoe Store, it would have been across the street.
Across Chestnut Street there.
Marlon Snyder had a gas station somewhere on Main Street, that may not be where it's at.
Well, and Cane's, I think.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
there was a
Cane's.
Cane's.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Cane's
remember
was
that.
there,
Yeah.
I think.
And next to ASK at one time, it was Boyer's Grocery Store.
Boyer's, okay, that's right. I remember that. I remember Boyer's grocery store. But then before that, wasn't it Hassler's? Is that where Hassler's was?
I think he was on Main Street down, remember Henry Seltzer had a little store?
Yeah, I know that name.
I think Hassler was in, he sold Venetian blinds.
What was he, Hassler was a grocery store too.
It might have been different
Mhm.
Boyer's is.
And Hall's Drugstore, that was a drugstore, right, a pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
That was down
Down
along,
farther.
yeah.
And there was a bowling alley
Where was the bowling alley?
on Main Street.
Really?
Mhm. Near the Seltzer Theater.
Okay, up that
Oh,
way, okay.
yeah,
Flipping back and
yeah.
forth.
There was a restaurant in the front and the bowling alley was in the back.
What was it called, the Red Palm? Palm, I think, something.
I don't recall what the name of that was.
It was a restaurant and a bowling alley in the back, yeah. My Aunt Blanche cooked there, I
And
think.
across from that was the Monarch Grocery Store and the post office.
The post office was over there, and then later that became Hostetter's in that same building.
No,
And Keeney's.
Keeney's was, it was a Disney shoe store too in town.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now that you say that, I think there was a Disney Shoes.
Well, this
What?
town really changed. I
Yes.
There was
So
always
many
equipment there
changes.
too in Main Street.
You know, so people ask me about the fact that we have so many shoe manufacturing places. So not only do we have a lot of shoe manufacturing places in Pelham, we have a lot of shoe stores.
Yeah.
Because we can just name
Well,
about 4
on
or
Main
5.
Street, was a tattoo shop out in Main Street. That I think was called Keeney's.
Keeney's, yes, there was a Keeney's shoe store.
And Disney was up on Main Street closer to the square.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And Banks?
Oh, boy, lots of banks. Keep naming
We
them.
were in Fosnock.
Yeah.
The River Fossack was on Railroad
And
Street.
Rister's Restaurant was down there. The Acme Grocery Store was on Railroad Street. Doc Water was on Railroad Street.
What was Beckwater?
Little, like a little grocery store, very small. Then Goodman took over everything. From Buffalo now.
Okay.
Goodman took
And who
over.
was with Goodman then? There was a Goodman and Yeager? He's the one that was killed in the quarry. He ran off 422 and,
Oh, no.
yeah.
Well, what did they sell? Groceries?
Mhm.
Groceries, before they started the flower shop. Because I remember Goodman's as the flower shop.
Yeah, and fruit. They were known for their fruit, two
I don't
Jaegers.
think he sold completely all groceries, Goodman.
No,
He was more into the flower
flowers.
business.
Flowers.
yep.
Like, well, that Rister's restaurant was down from him yet. Rister's.
Risser's Restaurant.
Mhm.
Well, keep going on your 100. I told her to write them down.
I was trying to, at one point, I was trying to draw a map, and, well, maybe we can do this with your help here.
Jake
Draw
Brady
it.
had the flower shop up in Main Street.
Oh, Jake Brady used to sell flowers?
Next to Hollywood store.
Oh, because
Oh,
I
Shop to
remember.
the theater, right next to the theater.
Yeah, it was the theater, then
Jake Brady.
Jay Crady, then the Hollywood shop.
Okay,
The
going
shop
west.
is across the street.
No, not where we used to shop. No, I particularly know that shop.
Yeah, the Hollywood shop was on the same side as Seltzer's.
Yeah,
Well, what was the dress shop then across the street there near where?
Hostetter's. Hostetter's was
Before
across the
Hostetter's,
street.
though.
in the mall, there was a dress shop.
Next to that funeral home. Yeah, Smith's funeral home was in there. On Main Street.
That ain't what I'm thinking of though.
No, Hostetter's was up on the other side,
Mhm.
up from the bank,
Mhm.
before they moved down to where Smith's used to be. Because he bought Smith's Funeral Home and destroyed that and
Yeah,
put
But there
his
was a
building.
dress shop in there.
I wonder what.
Oh, yes, there was. No, wait, I'm thinking of the video we have. It was a lady's name. It wasn't the Hollywood shop might have moved down there, now that you say that. Yeah, I think it was at 2 locations. We have a 1939 video that shows the shops in 1939, and the Hollywood shop is at a different location.
Well, see, and I was 7. So,
In
And there was a
1939.
jewelry
No, I
store right
was-
near there too. It's called Plow's Jewelry Store.
I'm not really sure about that.
Yeah, right next to Lurch's 5 and Dime.
Okay, all right. Everybody talks about Lee's too.
That was across the
Lee's
street.
was on
I
the
used to work there
corner.
and up going to school.
Yeah. Now,
Oh, and where did we used to shop? Across the
Ferries.
Ferries. They talk about ferries, I guess, somebody with you to,
well, we haven't talked about it a lot yet. Ferris was in what's called the Griner Building,
It's where the
where the bank
Palmer
and,
Pharmacy is right now.
right, well, and there was a restaurant there at one point, there was a hardware store in that building. They were
DJ
all along there, from the
DJ
bank.
Grace
down.
must have had a building in there too, because I worked in there.
Was there a Niswinder?
Nice window.
A drugstore. Yes, I think there was.
Mary Niswinder.
And do you remember McGee's drugstore?
Yeah, that's where the barber shop is now, the girls. Yeah, I know what I did one time in there was a bad thing. I guess it was my daughter, Sandy. Her daddy and I took her there for Sunday or something. We used to get something like that. And I saw her chewing, and I said, "Honey, what are you chewing?" She said, "It was under me."
Oh, no! Oh, gosh. I thought you were gonna say she took a piece of candy off of the shelf, but no,
No,
she took it from
no.
under the shelf.
Yeah,
Under the
she was about 5 or 6, I guess.
Do you remember at the square was Shutter's Bar?
Yes, that was over,
Near the 5 and Dime.
right, near, was it there when the 5 and Dime was there? Okay.
And then Bowman's Jewelry Store was right near there.
All right. Now, do you go back as far as, they tell me about the livery, and there was nightclub there?
Yeah, on the
Where-
corner, it
right,
was supposed to
where-
have been so beautiful.
Before Lee's was there.
Not remember that.
Helen Donor worked there. Did you know her name at all?
Helen Donor, the
She was-
cafeteria?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
That was
She made
my
the best
cookies.
cookies
Oh,
in
my
town.
gosh. My brother Harold was married to her daughter Mary, so we knew her well.
And she worked there at the
at that spot that you're talking about. It was beautiful inside. I saw pictures of it, I guess, in your book.
We have a book that has
Yeah.
pictures of it, yes.
Yeah, I have. On the corner of Middle Avenue was Augie's gas station.
Lottie's Laundry.
Doggies, okay, that's
No,
the
but
one
I
they
s-
just tore down for the new road.
And I see Lottie's Laundromat
Now, where was that?
On
near
Main
the
Street.
church, near Speace's, actually.
It's a golf connection in there right now.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, three
That was the
businesses.
laundromat.
That's a laundromat.
Well, let's talk about Speace's a little bit. That hasn't come up. Speace's was
She
very
worked
popular.
there.
Oh, you worked at Speace's?
She can,
28 years.
Oh, my goodness.
yeah, we can
Well,
talk
how did
about
that get started? So what's the story about the
They lived
Speace's?
in the basement
Oh, really?
when they started that store.
Oh, my goodness.
They lived in the basement.
and she walked to work every,
13 years, I know.
And what did you do at Speace's?
Cashier.
Okay, all right. I
everybody
remember
knows her. at
Mr.
that.
Klein, the meat guy, I remember that.
Yeah.
Dave Flory. You know Dave Flory. He isn't good at all.
Yeah.
Dave Flory, I should know
He
him.
worked there.
In meat department.
Oh, okay.
And Keith Bell.
Mr. Bell, right. Was he related to the Bell store that was uptown then?
I think so.
Okay, and then he just moved back to Speace's. Why did the Speace's get started? Was there family in groceries before or what? You said they lived in the basement, then they had this store upstairs. Do you know why they got started in the grocery store? That's interesting.
And his brother George Speece had a gas station down Chestnut Street,
Okay.
Yeah, up in the third block, probably. No.
near the railroad tracks.
So
Yeah.
the Speace's were a Palmyra family.
Mhm.
They had grown up there and made their businesses here.
Don was young when he died,
Mhm.
Don Spees.
What was your husband worked for Hershey and your family? The Sharmans, you said you were a Sharman? What were they involved with?
My father worked for Hershey.
But he worked for Hershey too?
Yeah, my mother worked in the Hershey laundry.
Okay. That's another
Yeah.
familiar
Term.
Okay, yes,
Mhm.
exactly.
My sister was a cheerleader in town.
Your sister.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Her and Joan Snavely together.
Oh, together, we have pictures of Joni in her
Yeah.
cheerleading outfit,
And my
right?
sister was with her.
Now, did you go to the Palmyra school system then?
Oh,
Okay.
heck, yeah.
And you said you went to
Hershey.
Hershey? Okay.
Campbelltown for elementary and then Hershey.
Okay.
My first 4 years I went to Hershey School, but we lived out in Palmdale at that time.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
But- And my aunt tells the story that she remembers the time that they made the decision in Campbelltown to whether they would become part of the Palmyra district
Yeah.
or the Hershey district. And they made the decision then to become part of the Palmyra district. Do you know when that was? What year that was?
Boy, not really.
We had Palmyra water at that time and had Hershey Electric.
Oh.
Oh, gosh.
It was confusing.
So you were born right next to what is now the Cinderella shop. And how long did you live there?
You know, we moved out in Palmdale then, right where Almond's paint store is right now.
Okay.
We lived in that yellow house there.
Oh, yeah.
So I couldn't tell you what year that would have been.
Okay, all right. But then you're right, once you go into Palmdale, that was more
That's
Hershey oriented
Hershey.
than Palmyra.
Yeah.
Palmyra stopped at Lingo Avenue.
Had to ride the streetcar.
I rode this streetcar too to Hershey.
But how did you get into Palmyra oh, there was one from Hamilton.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
right,
We
There's a
walked
street.
a mile.
To get to
The
the
Bucks
streetcar.
Farms, 1 mile from Leeds Corner, which was where the,
And how did your father get involved in bus driving?
he never learned to drive. He worked for the Bethlehem Steel in Lebanon.
Okay.
He lived in Avon. And I guess business got rather poor or something. And Hershey became the big talk at that time. And that's when he decided to move to where the Bucks Farm is, and his dad lived back on the farm. I don't know who lives there now. They just sold it for, oh gosh, we couldn't get over $300,000. I wouldn't give you 10 cents for the place, but they just sold it for that. And he and his dad decided they'd come up here. And my Aunt Winnie Gruber, I bet you know her name, don't you?
Winnie Gruber.
She lived to be 103.
Okay.
She was so mad at my dad. They had a nice place in Lebanon, all of them. Hebron, I guess, was where she lived. And when she heard that they were moving to a farmhouse that didn't even have a toilet inside. She was so mad at my dad, oh my. Then he got into he hauled with horse and wagon, firewood, then coal business, and then bus business. My brother Chet was the one that worked for Morris Long. And the first bus that we had the wooden seat that ran down from the bus driver to the back.
Okay.
There was no seats other than that, but you sat on both sides of that seat. So he bought the first bus, and now, I don't know what, we numbered them, and they're way up to 133 I saw, the last bus that I saw. And that might not be.
So that's where those numbers come from, the order in which you purchased them through the years.
Yeah,
There
and
is.
my husband and I bought 60 acres, this is, Dr. Kern was my dentist.
I have his name on here.
Yeah, I loved him. I used to say to him, I hate my dentist. He said, that's okay, I hate mine too. But my husband and I, he knew real estate is the best buy you can make. And we always went to sales and that kind of stuff. Well, we were out driving on a Sunday, and my daughter Sandra Weaver, married to H.R. Weaver, she was 18-month-old. And my husband saw this Nicholas farm. He just thought, I'm gonna go in here and check if there's any land to buy around here. The old man that owned the farm, he was so disgusted with his sons, they were not interested in farming at all. His wife was very sick, laying in back of a heat roller or something. And when my husband asked him, he said, you know what? He said, I have 60 acres of woodland I'll sell. Boy, my husband perked up his ear. Guess what that sold for?
Probably very little.
Very, very little. $8 an acre.
An acre.
But Dr. Kern, he offered me 3 times that amount. But we just sold it. I had sold it later on then to Harold and Sunday. I got $140,000 from them. They just sold it about 3 months ago to a young man back there. He said he'd love to have that place. They got $360 for the same ground. But my son-in-law built a nice lodge there when the trees were getting ruined, you know, with that. I said, get logs made and make us a log cabin. And that's what he did, so.
That just shows the value of property, or, you know, if we talked about the grocery stores, you probably paid a nickel for bread, right?
Yeah.
And today, it's a lot more, so it just
Yeah.
shows how the value of things has
3
increased.
generations.
Now, is that woodland in Palmyra?
Oh, no, it's West Hanover,
Oh, okay.
near Ritzy Village. It's
Okay.
all woodland.
Very nice, very good. Okay. If you were selling Palmyra to somebody else, if you were living in the Palmyra area to somebody, what would you tell them about your experience as far as Palmyra?
Well, I have a neat experience now that you say that about the Palmyra cops. I was one of these dumb women I was 79, I think then. This group of black kids, college age or something like that, they hit where I live. I live in Palmyra now, Orchard Hill.
Okay.
My son-in-law built that development. And this girl knocked on the door, and I opened the door, and she said, oh, I hope this will be my last house that I have to go to. A nice spiel she gave me, to make it short. She took me across for $61 on a magazine sale. Well, I just love kids, and I didn't think anything of it. That was at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. 9 o'clock that night, an officer called me from up in the hill. He said, Helen, Warfel. I said, yeah. He said, I have your check in my hand for $61. We broke that scam in Anvil.
Oh.
He said, I'll get
You're
your
lucky.
check back to you
You were
tomorrow.
lucky.
So the
So-
police are doing their job, I'll tell you.
Small time, know everybody, know what's happening in the community, that type of thing.
I really feel protected. I walk that area. It's a lovely development. And I love Wise Store. I don't go over to Redner's. It's a good store too, but I think they pick good merchandise and fresh fruit and stuff. but they're renovating it. It's sort of a madhouse right now if you ever go into Wise.
Yes, yes. Well, it makes me think about the growth. We talked about the mom and pop stores and how Palmyra has changed from
Oh, yes.
all those mom and pop stores to the, you talked about Baumgartner's Dairy. My understanding is that in the 60s, that's about when this happened, because people started going to the Acme and the A&P and the bigger grocery stores that had
Yeah.
suppliers coming in. One of the persons that we talked with worked for Kraft, and he talked about Kraft and Palmyra
Yes.
packaged the cheese
Yeah.
for the bigger stores.
Yeah.
So from the late 50s, early 60s, those mom and pop stores sort of went out of the
Fading away.
business, and the bigger stores came in. But I do know, when you mentioned the Weiss store, I do know that they have an attitude of wanting to really meet the needs of the Palmyra people, that the people that
I
are in
love
that
that
store.
store.
And so even though we have bigger stores,
I'm gonna stick with Wise.
we have people that are looking after the welfare
Mhm.
in the shopping of
Do you remember on South Railroad Street, that Sears gas station?
I don't remember, I knew it was there.
What was it?
Sears gas station.
No, I don't think so.
Bayshore Hardware was out on East Cherry Street.
Well, we're gonna have to wrap this up, but I really appreciated this. Yes, I would love to have that. Thank you very, very
Read my
much.
writing.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, I
you have
think
a
so.
good penmanship. Better than mine.
And let me put your, here, why don't you put your, can you write your name and address, or your phone number at least on there? Here, let me give you my.
Let her give you some
Yeah.
support. There we go.
Appreciate that. Well, thank you for coming in today, particularly at such late notice.
Well, Butch was all excited. He'd had a fit by when they came.
Hey,
And I
don't think
never
he
knew
was
I'd
coming,
get-
did he?
yes, he